Hello and welcome to the college application process for Wesley Chapel High School. I'm Mrs. Fasash. I am the school's college and career specialist and so excited for you to join us tonight as we talk about college and university applications. We will be mostly focused on university applications tonight. We'll cover a couple other different things, but this is just currently the time period to submit those applications, so I want to make sure you have all the information for that. I do really encourage you to have your student reach out to me so that we can meet personally and come up with an individualized plan, regardless if they choose a university, a college, military, a trade, or career. As the college and career specialist, there are a few things that your student can reach out to me for, including, of course, applications, SAT and ACT testing. I also am able to give fee waivers to any students who are on free or reduced lunch. As a free and reduced lunch student, you will get 2 free SAT and 2 free ACT fee waivers to use between junior and senior year. If you receive these fee waivers, you also will get free college applications. So please do not pay for any of that. Come and see me and I can help you with that. Scholarships, I do have a monthly scholarship newsletter, so I would encourage you to sign up for my remind at the end of this session. Financial aid, military recruitment, careers and trades, resume and interview skills, as well as post-graduation planning. Even if your student isn't quite sure what they want to do after high school, I'd love to meet with them to give them some options. I'm available in several different ways for students and parents. For students attending traditional school on campus, they can come and see me before and after school in the College and Career Lab and Student Services. They can also text me on Remind or email me at any time and ask for a pass from their teacher. If they're online students, I'd love to set up a Zoom conference to talk about college and career plans. I've already met with several of the My School Online students, and we can also do this with parents. Parents aren't currently allowed on campus, but I'm more than happy to set up a Zoom if you would like to get involved in this process as well. Students have several pathways after high school. Some will go on to a four-year university. Others will go to a state or community college with the intention of then transferring to a university after they receive their Associate in Arts degree. Some students will go to the state and community college for a 2-year Associate of Science degree in things like nursing or EMS. Some students will just go and take classes and get a certificate in something such as paramedic, or they'll get an EMT license. Trade and technical schools are right here in Pasco County as well. We have representatives in each of the military branches, so if that is something that your student would like more information on, please come and see me. And some students choose to go right into the workforce. As I said, we do have a local technical school. It's Marchman Technical College. They have everything from culinary to welding to medical, cosmetology, electric and HVAC, graphic design and TV production. There are so many options for Marchman. It's very reasonable. They do accept financial aid, and I would be happy to talk to anyone about those programs. As I said, some students will go to community college with the intention of transferring to a university after 2 years, but community colleges have so much more to offer than just that 2-year Associate of Arts degree. They have Associate of Science degrees in everything from nursing to radiography and dental hygienist. You can get licenses in paramedic and EMT, firefighter and corrections. You can get a 2-year college degree in business and computers where you take that and go right to the workforce. Please come and talk to me about PHSC or HSC if you think some of these options sound good for you. And then, of course, we can go to a 4-year college and get our bachelor's degree with the intention of that just getting that 4 years degree, or to get a master's or go on to more professional school after that. Briefly, I wanted to go over the Florida Academic Scholars because there were a few changes for this class of 2021 and beyond. This can always change, but as of right now for this year, for the Florida Academic Scholars, that is the 100% tuition and fees paid to a Florida public university or college. In order to get that, you do need a 3.5 weighted GPA in your core classes. This does require 2 years of the same foreign language. You need a 1330 SAT, that's new for this year, or a 29 ACT. Both of these are super scored between the same test, so you can take the test multiple times and they will combine the sections to get you your highest score. You will need 100 community service hours. Along with that 100% tuition and fees, you will receive a $300 book stipend per semester. And this is renewable for 4 years, 120 college hours, but you do have to keep a 3.0 GPA while you're in school. For the Florida Medallion Scholars, you will receive 75% of your tuition and fees paid to a Florida public university. New this year is that for students who receive this level and attend a state or community college, 100% of your tuition and fees will be paid while you are attending that state community college. You need a 3.0 weighted GPA in your core classes for this level, still 2 years of the same foreign language, a 1210 SAT, that's new this year, or a 25 ACT, also new this year. Both, of course, will super score. You will need 75 community service hours, and this is also renewable for 4 years as long as you keep a 2.75 GPA. Many people wonder how many schools we should apply for when it comes to colleges and universities, and it really is important to understand the admissions criteria and where you fall on the admissions scale. You're able to Google pretty much any university and see what their mid 50% range is for the students that were accepted the prior year. If you fall right within that range, you can consider that to be a match school for you. We really only need to apply to 2 to 3 match schools unless we're just really not sure where we want to go and want to keep that a little bit more open. But that would be, the match schools would be where our GPA and our test scores fit the profile of the students that are currently enrolled at that college or university. We also sometimes have schools where we don't fit the exact profile, but we really do want to consider going there. Those would be called our reach schools, and we can apply to several reach schools. I usually suggest at least 1 to 2. You're certainly welcome to apply to more than that. For most people, University of Florida would be considered a reach school at this point, just because they do only usually accept about 30% of the applicants, and it is quite high with their test scores and GPA. So for some students that will be a match school, but for a lot that would just be an example of a reach school. It doesn't necessarily have to be an Ivy League school. I also suggest that you apply to 1 to 2 safety schools. For most of us, PHSC can be a safety school because the only thing that we need in order to enroll for college courses is a high school diploma, which the vast majority of us should have by the time June rolls around. For some people, USF would also be a safety school, and for some people, USF would be a reach school. It really is going to depend on your test scores and GPA, which is one of the reasons I'd like to meet with you personally so that we can really create that school list for you that has the reach, match, and safety schools. Let's talk about how we would attend PHSC, Pasco Hernando State College. As I mentioned earlier, you will only need a standard high school diploma in order to work on college credit at PHSC. Though you don't necessarily need SAT or ACT scores to attend, they can use those in order to place you in your English and math classes for college credit. If you don't have them, you will simply take the PERT test at PHSC. It's an untimed test, and they can use that for your placement. You do not need 2 years of a foreign language to attend PHSC, but if you plan to go on to a university, you will take 2 semesters of a foreign language while you're there. The benefits to attending PHSC are that the class sizes are much smaller than you would find at a public university. You can expect classes like high school, probably 30 or less, versus a university where several hundred students might be in your classroom. It's also half the cost of a university, so it makes for a very good financial decision to attend PHSC first for those first 2 years while you're working on your general education requirements. It also gives you some time to decide on your major if you're not quite sure what you'd like to study at the university level. You can go ahead again and work on those general education requirements and then decide what you'd like to work on for your major before actually entering the university. I'm going to show you the current admissions standards for some of the university. Now just keep in mind that these are the mid 50% of students who were accepted for fall 2019. This just gives you an idea of what the standards will look like. And of course, like we mentioned with the match schools, we want to be within those ranges to consider the school a match school for us. The 2020 matrix will be coming soon. Students can stop by my office to get a copy of either of these matrices. I would say the 2021, give me a few weeks on that one, but I do currently have the 2019 matrix if they would like a paper copy of that. This is just an example of the schools that will be on the matrix. This is, like I said, last year's matrix. And the way we would look at this is that we can choose any school we'd like. So I'm just going to look at the University of South Florida. We can see what the mid 50% who were accepted, what their GPA was. And again, this is going to be for fall, so this is the most difficult to get into for the application cycle. So we had a 4.1 to a 4.3, SAT scores from 1260 to 1325, ACT scores from 27 to 30. So this does not include summer admits. And like I mentioned before, summer is going to be a little bit easier to get in as far as the GPA and test scores. Just to give you an example, for summer last year, the GPA was I believe a 3.5 to a 4.0. The SAT was an 1130 is when admission began, and ACT admission began at a 23. So you can see that's quite a bit off from what the fall is. I do have some of the fall and summer admission requirements on the same form in my office if you would like to send your child to receive that. We have three ways that we can apply to schools, and we'll go over briefly what each of those looks like. So we can apply to schools using the institutional application, and that would basically just be going to the institution or university website and applying through their online application. That's definitely the way to go if you plan to just apply to a couple schools. Personally, I would recommend using Common Application for most students at commonapp.org or the Coalition application at mycoalition.org. We're going to go through exactly what each of these options looks like and which one your student should use. The institutional application, as I said, is really best if you only plan on applying to a couple schools or if the university does not participate in Common and Coalition applications. Especially if there's no overlap between the applications. We don't want to do an entire Common application and a Coalition application and an institutional application. We're really trying to make the most use of our time and do the least amount of applications possible. You can still use fee waivers for institutional applications. You will have to upload those or email them to the university. Please see me and I can go through this with you. One example of people who would have to use the institutional application would be students that are applying to Florida International University. They're not currently on Common or Coalition applications, so you would have to go to fiu.edu in order to apply there. If you had planned on just staying local and going to either PHSC or USF, then again, I probably would not recommend doing a Common and Coalition application. Just go to usf.edu to apply. And then, of course, PHSC won't be on the Common and Coalition application. It's just universities at this time, so we would just apply through phsc.edu. One of the benefits of making a Common application is that there are over 800 universities on this application. So for many of us, we can simply do Common App and apply to all of the schools that we would like to apply to. You can apply to 20 schools, and for most of us, that's way more than we'll ever need. We can also track important deadlines and admission criteria on the website. You can also get a fee waiver applied to your account if you're on free or reduced lunch or have received a test waiver. You would simply do that in your profile tab. There'll be a section that says fee waiver. You'll answer a couple of questions and then you'll put my email address in. I will get an email to approve your fee waiver, and then you can apply to 20 schools on Common App for free. These are the current Florida schools that are on the Common application. As you can see, The vast majority of these schools are the ones that our students will be applying to. We have University of South Florida, North Florida, University of Florida, Florida State, St. Leo, University of Central Florida is on here as well. So for most of us, this is going to cover all of the schools that we have an interest in. And that's why I said to really look closely at the schools, because we can simply do this one application and cover everything that we would need. The important thing with the Common Application is that you do need to add me under the counselor invite so that I can upload our school profile and your transcript to the site. So we actually will not need to send physical transcripts to the schools that we apply to through Common App, which is really, really convenient. I simply will upload that to your Common App application, and the schools are going to be able to access that on the site. So the way that you would do that, even though under the Profile tab you will be listing me as a counselor separately, you're going to have to go into your colleges, and you can select any of the colleges you've added. You'll only need to do this once and it will apply to all. Go under the college and look for where it says Recommenders and FERPA. When you get to the Recommenders section of that, you will see a little tab that says Invite Counselor, and most of the time it won't even allow you to submit your application until I've done my part. So you will simply put my information, which I will have on the next slide, and then I'll be able to take care of that for you. This is the information that you should put into that section. It really is going to just ask for my name, my title, my email, and my phone number. So as long as all of that gets in there, I will get an invite on your behalf and I can upload those documents. If you don't use Common App, you might use the Coalition for College Access application, the Coalition app. There are only about 140 members on this application, but the cool thing about the Coalition colleges is that they are committed to providing aid to under-resourced, underserved, and first-generation college students. So if a college is on this application, we know that they are really committed to financial aid for those who need it. You actually don't need to get a fee waiver for your college applications from me for the Coalition app. It simply is going to ask you a couple of questions. You will answer those questions and a fee waiver will be applied to your account automatically. So that does make it very easy. If you're applying to USF and some other Florida schools, this might be a great application for you because I'm about to show you in a moment, but it does have most of the schools on there. They also have a cool area for, it's called the locker, and you can basically put in your high school activities and awards and just kind of keep everything together. So it's kind of neat for college planning and such. So for the Florida schools, you can see it's a smaller list, and there are definitely some that are not on here. I would say most obvious would be UCF, University of Central Florida, is not on here. But if you're not planning to apply to UCF, maybe you're just doing USF and University of Florida, Florida State, this might be a great application for you. For each of the schools, it is going to ask you what term you're applying for. So I did want to quickly go over those. So there's a couple things that you can do when you're thinking about what term to apply for. Number one is you can just click fall. That would be for next fall, fall of 2021, which is probably when most students want to head to college. This is traditionally when we think of people going off to university, but I do want to say this is the most difficult semester to get accepted to. So just keep that in mind. Now, if you apply for fall, some schools will also automatically consider you for summer and spring. So maybe they're looking at your application for fall and they don't think you quite meet the criteria that they want for fall. They will assign you summer or spring versus just denying you. So that's pretty neat. What's kind of cool is that they only have to report their criteria for GPA and test scores for fall. So the summer and spring isn't held against them with reporting that. They obviously want to keep the fall measures looking very, very high so that they look very competitive as well. So summer is going to be a little bit lower, like I was giving the example with USF. For UF, I will say it doesn't matter at all. That really is just based on what term you would like to go, but there is no academic difference between UF summer and UF fall. So don't worry so much about that one. But for places like USF, UCF, even FSU to a degree, I would say that, you know, summer is going to be an easier term to get into. Now, for some of the schools like USF and UCF, you actually don't need to go to the school and take classes during the summer. You can simply do them online from home in Wesley Chapel. So that's kind of nice too, because you don't have to incur the expenses of a dorm or housing and food, and you can just pay for your classes and still live with your parents. Sometimes there's some special programs that go on in the summer, which I'll go over a little bit later, but that might be another reason that summer might work for you. Spring is going to be the least competitive to get in. Still competitive, but much less than fall and summer. So this usually applies for students. Maybe their test scores are a little bit on the lower side, or their test scores look good, but their GPA maybe is not as competitive as some of the other applicants. So spring is good. If you get spring, what I would probably do personally is go to PHSC for the fall semester and then start your university in the spring. Very easy. When should you apply? So I recommend everyone applying by November 1st to get that priority consideration. When you're filling out applications, you're going to see that some applications say, and I'll just use USF as an example, I think it says March 1st, it might even be April 1st this year for applications being due. And while that is true, and you certainly can be considered up until that point, you are going to have a priority application giving you a little bit of extra consideration. So I personally would recommend trying to get all of your applications in by November 1st, especially if it's a rolling admission school where they're looking at applications and making decisions as they come in. For schools like FSU and UF, they are usually a November 1st hard deadline as well. Definitely meet those deadlines. Now for those schools, it does not matter if you get it in early because they're not going to be looking at those applications until that time. Again, have your student go ahead and check with me to see what type of admission, if it's rolling or if it's more of a concrete date, and I can tell them when they should be applying and getting their applications in. Though we talked about Common App and Coalition where I can upload the transcripts, several universities are starting to use what is called SAR, the Student Self-Reported Academic Record. This is really new in the last few years, and a lot of people don't realize they have to do this, and that's why I wanted to go over this very carefully. So if you are applying to FSU, FAU, FGCU, Florida Poly, University of North Florida, or University of Florida, you are going to have to complete the SAR. So in order to do the SAR, you have to make an account with SAR. You can just Google it and it'll come right up. You'll make an account with that. You need to get an unofficial transcript from me because you will have to report all of your high school coursework and grades for every semester beginning from 9th grade through your senior year. You won't assign grades to your senior year, of course. We don't have grades right now, but we will list our courses there. We're going to list our senior coursework and we're going to select in progress instead of grades. We are not going to go back in and update with our semester senior grades. They are not going to use your senior grades at all to make their admissions decision. They're only going to be looking at your 9th, 10th, and 11th grade grades in order to make your admissions decisions. Make sure that you please complete the SAR and you click complete and submit it so that it all goes through. Once you apply to your universities, they are going to be sending you an email that says for you to create a portal with the university, and you will be linking your SAR to that portal. Again, I know this sounds a little bit confusing, so please reach out with any questions about this once you get going on it. Your first step, of course, is to get that unofficial transcript. I can either email it to your My School Online account or the Canvas account, or you can come and pick it up. I can print that out for you, but you will need that to make sure that this is very, very accurate. For some schools, you will not need an SSAR. You won't need to create that. You'll simply need to request a transcript on our Wesley Chapel High School website. So you can go to the main page of our Wesley Chapel High School website, scroll to the bottom, and you will see this little tab for request a transcript. For public colleges, for the big colleges, you're going to be able to have those sent electronically. If it's a smaller school, you may need to have the hard copy sent, but it's very easy to fill out, and then we can go ahead and send that on your behalf. If you're not quite sure what to select, again, come and see me and I'll help you with that. In addition to your high school transcript, some students may need to send additional documents to the colleges that they're applying to. One would be a dual enrollment transcript if a student has taken dual enrollment courses their sophomore or junior year. If you're only taking dual enrollment as a senior, you won't need to worry about sending this transcript until after you graduate. You can send a transcript through your PHSC WISE account. Also, it's very important to make sure you understand the deadlines for your colleges and universities receiving official reports for ACT and SAT. Sometimes students get confused because it will ask on all applications for you to self-report your scores, but the majority of colleges are going to need official test scores in order to process your application. You may have already sent these test scores with your free sends when you registered for the tests, but it's really important to check and make sure that you did. I can help you with that if you're not sure if you did. If you did not, you can certainly go to these websites and pay to have your scores sent to the schools. After graduation, all students attending a college or a university will need to send a final transcript. This shows your graduation date, the type of diploma received, and of course your final senior grades. It's very important to send this next summer so that you're able to register for your college classes. If you're on my Remind, I will send out a reminder to you once these transcripts are ready, which is usually about a week after graduation. Also keep in mind that schools do not need your AP exam score report in order to process your university or college application, but they will need the score report from College Board in order to assign you college credit. You really only need to send this to the school that you ultimately decide to attend. My recommendation would be that when you're filling out your registration for your AP exams in the spring, that you go ahead and indicate the school you plan to attend so they can receive that free score report with those scores as well as your past scores. With the current state of things, there are a lot of questions regarding COVID and ACT and SAT testing, so I just wanted to clarify those for you today. Now, obviously, this information can change. I'm recording this on August 31st, and I will continue to update if something does happen to change. But as of today, all Florida public universities are still requiring an ACT or an SAT test score in order to have an admissions application processed. So the schools are not able to make their own decisions on this requirement. The State Board of Governors would have to make a change for the public universities to become test optional. Even if they did become test optional, that does not necessarily mean that they are test blind. So schools still will consider those ACT and SAT scores to help students, especially if you have a great score. They're still going to look at that. Personally, for me, I would recommend going ahead and making sure you have an ACT or SAT score so that your application can be processed in the case that there are no changes made to these current policies. I do want to say, though, there are so many colleges right now that during the COVID time have signed on affirming that their test optional policies are truly test optional and that applicants will not be penalized for not submitting test scores. There are currently 400 colleges and universities that have signed NACAC's appeal for this. Colleges are going to superscore your ACT and SAT in order to help you have the highest profile possible for your admissions application. For the most part, colleges are not going to penalize students for underperforming on the assessments. So it really is a good idea to make sure all of your test scores are sent so they can use those scores to superscore. In order to superscore an SAT, they'll be combining your top reading and math scores from all tests. In order to superscore their ACT, they're going to combine your top subject area scores from the 4 sections and then divide by 4, and that will be your new composite score. Once you apply to a school, whether you are using the SAR to get them your grades or they are looking at the transcript that I upload to one of the sites, they are going to recalculate your GPA. So the schools are going to recalculate your GPA mostly based on your core courses like English, math, science, social studies, foreign language, and academic electives. They are still going to give you your honors points for honors, AP, and dual enrollment courses, but just to kind of keep in mind that just because I'm telling a student that they have a certain unweighted and weighted GPA and we're putting those on our application, that does not mean that's the GPA that the college is using to make their decision. If a student is curious what their recalculated GPA is going to be, they can come and ask me for their Bright Futures GPA, and that will probably be the closest that we can get it. After their application is processed, they're able to call the universities, and they can always ask what their recalculated GPA came out to be from each of the universities, as they all have a little bit of a different way of doing it. If a student has retaken the class, most of the universities are going to use both grades when recalculating your GPA. There's still time to sign up for the October SAT and ACT tests. So October ACT is the 24th, and you need to register by September 18th. And the SAT is right around the corner, October 3rd, and you do need to register by Friday, September 4th. So if you need a waiver, again, make sure you see me if you qualify for free and reduced lunch, and I can get you that free test waiver. When filling out your college applications, make sure that you include your future test dates as well, so that schools know that there are more test scores coming their way, just in case the ones that you've already sent don't make the cut for the current admissions. They know that there's more scores that they can look at in the future. When you submit your applications, you can still continue to send the scores to the universities. So just because I submit an application on, let's say, September 10th, and then I'm taking the October 3rd SAT, that doesn't mean that I cannot submit anything else on my behalf. I certainly can. So continue to send your test scores to the university, and like I said, they will continue to update your application and super score with the new information that they receive. Florida universities are going to be asking you for Florida residency information, and I just wanted to briefly go over this so that you knew what to include for this. This is in order for them to get Florida tuition, which of course we want, because out-of-state residents are going to pay 3 times what a Florida resident would pay. So they usually are going to require 2 or 3 documents for Florida residency. What you'd like to do is choose one parent for this information. So we don't want to be splitting it between several parents. Just choose one parent and get the documents for this one parent. So personally, I recommend your driver's license as one of the documents. If you have your voter's registration, because we know that's coming up, using that number for another document. And then the Florida vehicle registration, you can use that. You're going to look for the decal information and the plate issue date. Those are usually, to me, the 3 easiest for your Florida residency. There is a huge list that they will give you of other things that you can use, but personally, the driver's license, voter's registration, and vehicle registration are really easy to get your hands on, and usually just the easiest to upload as well. So after you submit your application, most schools are going to send you an email in 1 to 3 days with instructions to access their specific university portal. Basically, at that point, for any schools that are requiring the SSAR, the SAR report, you are going to link that SAR in your portal. There's a huge number you'll copy and paste into it. It'll be very obvious. And sometimes you will also be asked to self-report your test scores. Even though we already self-reported them on Common App, they may ask you to self-report on their university portal as well. Admissions decisions are always going to be posted on these university online portals well before you receive a letter or an email. So make sure to check them often if you know, especially their rolling admission. You can also use these university portals to check to make sure that your documents have been received and there's no holds on your admissions decision. It's definitely something you should look at pretty often to see, have my test scores been received, has my transcript been processed, is my residency information up to date. Those are important things, and most universities need those things in order to make that decision, and we don't want to get our decisions delayed because we're missing something. I'm going to very briefly touch on early action and early decision if you were applying to a competitive top 50 university. Some schools are going to give you the option for early action or early decision, and I'm just going to very briefly mention what each of these are. With early action, this is just giving you an earlier date to get your application in by in order to receive a decision early in the admission cycle, most likely December through February. You'll probably have to get your application in by November 1st or 15th, and then they will actually come back and tell you if you got in December through February, which is quite early for a Ivy League or a top 50 type of school. A lot of times those decisions don't even come out until April. You can consider the acceptance offer, but you do not have to commit. There's nothing binding about early action. You can apply to other colleges under any regular admissions plans. You can even apply to several colleges early action, unless it's restricted early action that says you can only apply to one, but most are just normal early action, and you can apply to several early action universities. You will give the colleges a decision by May 1st, just as you would for any of the other schools that you're applying for. Really, the benefit to this is that you are getting like an early decision to see if you might get in, especially if this is a university that you're really, really interested in. A lot of times we're even deferred into regular decision, which it's not an issue there. But if you think you can get your application and all of your documents in early, this is a good way to do it. Most people aren't just outright denied, they're usually just deferred to regular decision. Early decision is different from early action as it is binding. And in order to apply early decision, I have to go over something on the Common App with students, and I usually will also call the parent to make sure they understand the ramifications of early decision. So again, most of the time you're going to be applying early by November 1st to your first choice college. You will get an early admissions decision from the college, usually by December. But with early decision, it is binding. You are agreeing to attend the college if the college accepts you and offers you a financial aid package that is considered adequate by the family. Now, each college, and I'll go over this a little bit more in October during my financial aid night, but each college has a calculator on their website to show approximately what type of aid you would get and the amount you'd be responsible for. So it's really important to understand this. You can only apply to one college early decision. And then once you get that decision, you have to basically go and retract all of your college admissions applications from other schools. So I can apply to one college early decision. I can apply to several other schools under a regular decision. But then if I get that early decision and it's a positive decision for me, I have to go back and withdraw my other applications. So this one's a little bit tricky because you won't know what other schools you get into with regular decision. And those schools might have given you a better financial aid package. So it's a little bit of a tricky thing. A lot of people are deferred anyway, but come and talk to me if you're thinking about doing one of these early decisions. We can go over the pros and cons. If you're applying to UF or FSU, UCF, or FGCU, University of Miami, or some other prestigious schools, you will have to write an essay through Common App or Coalition App, as well as several short responses for the universities. It's really important that we think about what our essay topic is going to be, and we spend a lot of time on this. This is definitely not something we'd want to throw together really quickly. What I like to talk about with this essay is to ask yourself, could another student have written this essay? And if your answer is yes, then you might want to rethink your topic to come up with something that's a little bit more unique to you. They really want insight into who you are, and this is going to be the best way for them to see this. So we're just going to go over a couple things on the essay. Number one is you are going to write in first person, I, me, my. I know we're told not to do that a lot in the types of writing that we've been doing, but this is definitely a personal narrative, and you're going to be wanting to talk in first person the whole time. Think creatively about your topic. So we don't want to talk about things that are already in our application because they already have that information. This should be new information for them, not a restatement of what you've already told them in your activities section or your community service section. We really want to create a deep connection for the reader. So what is your unique perspective on this topic? This is where I get to know you, your thoughts, and your feelings about something. You want to show individuality, and you definitely want to have voice in your essay. I'm happy to read your essays, and I can usually tell within the first paragraph if it has voice or not, or if it just comes across flat. Go ahead and Google College Essay Guy or College Essay Advisors. They have so many free resources that you can use to help you brainstorm a topic for your college applications, look at samples of essays, and also it's going to help you just put together a personal narrative. They do have some paid programs too. I honestly would not even worry about doing the paid programs because there's so much free resources on these websites that I don't think you'll run out by the time your college applications are due. Make sure you pay attention to your word count count your character, make sure you're running spell check and looking at your grammar. You also want to make sure that you type any essays or short responses into a Word document. So don't just do it in the Common App, because you're going to find that you're going to be able to use these essays for a lot of other things, especially scholarships. With scholarships, most of the time we are going to have to write some essays and short responses, and we can take these and we can just personalize them to each scholarship if it's in a Word document. So make sure that you keep this document someplace safe and don't just have it in the Common App. If you're interested in the Honors College, there are honors colleges at most universities, and you will either automatically gain acceptance to these based on your grades or test scores, or sometimes you will have to put in an honors application. For some schools, and I'll use UF as an example here, and FSU I believe as well, you actually will be applying to the Honors College on your Common App application. There will be a question that asks you if you would like to apply to the Honors College, and if you select yes, you will have to answer some other questions in order to be considered for that. So the way an honors college would work is that you have to get into the university first. So you're going to have to make that first cut. Then they're going to look at the honors applications from the students they accepted, and then they will make a cut based on the top of those candidates. The benefits is you are going to be in a smaller community. You are going to have what I would consider accelerated advising. Just you'll have people that are specific to the Honors College. It is a nice community setting, and you are going to get some really nice research and networking opportunities, some of which will be paid. You will start to receive offers of acceptance at different times. You don't have to make a final decision until May 1st, though, of course, most students will make it quite before that. You can go ahead and accept earlier if you do finalize your decision, and I would just encourage you to go into your portals and decline offers from any other universities that you've been accepted to. That really is going to help your peers, because several students will be placed on wait lists, and they basically will be on those wait lists until the school starts receiving declined offers from students that were admitted. Just make sure that you pay attention to the deadlines of when you need to submit your admissions deposit by. Any housing deadlines, housing usually is going to be on a first come, first served basis. So if you decide to attend a school earlier on, I would go ahead personally and submit your housing deposit to that school so that you can be higher up on that list. And then also keep in mind any scholarship deadlines that the individual school may have as well. I know we've been talking a lot about the universities, and I just wanted to quickly go over what the 2+2 pathway is if your student feels that they are going to be best suited starting at a community or state college for 2 years before they finish up at the university. So they will spend 2 years at a state college and then 2 years at a university. The university will be where they'll work on their coursework for their major. They'll earn their associate's degree for their first 2 years at the state college, which is going to be 60 hours. They still are going to be doing those same classes regardless if they were at the community college or at the university for those first 2 years. 36 hours will be what are called general education classes, similar to high school where they have to have certain sciences and math, English, etc. And they'll also have 24 hours of electives. So that'll be 8 classes that they can choose what they'd like to take. And sometimes people will do this based on things that they're interested in with their major. If they look at the university, sometimes they'll see prerequisites that the university wants them to have before they get there. So there's a lot of options for those elective classes. They do need to attain at least a C in the general ed classes. The specific programs do require more, like if you're going into engineering or nursing, a C is definitely not going to be enough for those classes. You're probably looking at B's and A's. After you get that Associates of Arts degree, that spring semester before you get it, you can apply to a university as a transfer student. It's going to be much easier to get in as a transfer student to a university than a freshman first time in college. You will not need SAT or ACT test scores if you are applying as a transfer student with an Associate of Arts degree. So that is one great thing. You also are not even going to need to send your high school transcript. The only thing they're going to be looking at is your college transcript from those first 2 years working on your Associate of Arts degree. Of course, the better your grades, the better opportunity you're going to have to get into the university of your choice. Let's talk about applying to Pasco Hernando State College, PHSC. We don't need to worry about applying with our online application until the spring. I'll start sending out reminders in January when it's time to do this. We are going to have to pay $25 to have our application processed, and just like the universities, we'll also have to establish that Florida residency for tuition purposes. Now, a big change with community colleges versus the university is we won't be submitting any transcripts until after graduation. So they won't be looking at a GPA in order to admit us or not. Remember, it's all based on our high school traditional graduation diploma. So after graduation, probably about a week after, I will send out a text to let everyone know when final transcripts are ready with a link of how to request those to send to PHSC. Beginning on October 1st, you can go ahead and sign up for financial aid through FAFSA, which I'll discuss in a moment, even though we're not putting in our PHSC application until later on. Financial aid and scholarships can be worked on from now until you graduate, so I would definitely encourage you to do those earlier rather than later. If you don't have ACT and SAT tests, then in the spring you can schedule a PERT test with PHSC for that college placement. Depending on COVID, we may be having our senior blitz virtually or it might be in person, but basically that's going to be a student orientation for chapel students that will be attending PHSC, and that's usually in April. As we get closer to that graduation date, you'll be able to schedule a meeting with an academic advisor at PHSC to select your classes for the fall. I will be hosting a financial aid and scholarship night in early October, but I did want to just give you a brief glimpse of a couple important things for financial aid. The first one is the Florida Financial Aid Application, FFAA. This opens October 1st of a student's senior year, and they have until next August in order to file this, but of course earlier is always better. This is primarily needed for the Bright Futures Scholarship. You do not need to have met the Bright Futures criteria in order to file an application. So we want to go ahead and file it now, and we will continue to be evaluated for eligibility. This is also used for several other Florida aid opportunities. So even if Bright Futures is not something that you're going for, I would definitely suggest filling out this application. Universities give merit scholarships based on an applicant's GPA and test scores. For the most part, these are automatic consideration scholarships with an application on file. It's not a separate scholarship application at the university. And traditionally, the top 25% of applicants are offered some type of scholarship. Some schools actually have specific criteria on their website for what GPA and test scores you need to receive a scholarship. And if you meet those criteria, you will get the offer. FAFSA is the federal application for student aid, and that opens every October 1st for the following year for funding. So for instance, on October 1st, the application for 2021-2022 student aid will be available. That will cover your student for next fall, spring of 22, and summer of 22. So this is the primary application we want to fill out. If your student is going to be applying for summer admission at schools, you might want to consider filling out the application that is currently on the website, fafsa.gov, for 2020 and 2021. That would cover summer of 2021 funding. You will receive an expected family contribution, also known as an EFC, that tells you how much you are expected to contribute to your child's education, and the aid is based off of that. You also will be told if you qualify for a Pell Grant. A Pell Grant is a grant we do not have to pay back, and it is based on our family's income. Let's go over our application timelines one last time. Remember, with rolling admissions for schools like USF, UCF, FAU, UNF, November 1st is going to be the priority application deadline. But because these schools do evaluate applications as they come in, I recommend you apply even earlier. September and October would be great for this, and that way you'll receive an early decision before a lot of people begin to submit those applications. Schools with fixed admission deadlines like UF and FSU are usually November 1st, but check the website for details because some of these may be pushed back due to COVID. With a fixed admission deadline, you do not have to get your admissions application in early. There's really no benefit to doing that because they will not start looking at applications until that November 1st date. With that student self-reported academic record, we can begin working on that now once we get the transcript, and the deadline for those will vary, so make sure you check the school to see when that needs to be linked with the application. Test scores would be the same thing. We need to check the school to see if we can self-report or if they have to receive an official report from ACT or SAT, and by when. So here's the big things to think about as we start to wrap this up. What schools am I applying to, and what platform am I using for each school? Am I using Common App Coalition or an institution application? Did I submit all of my Florida residency documents? If I have application fee waivers, did I submit them? Did I attach my SAR number or send an official transcript or have Ms. Facehash upload a transcript to Common App? Because we know that they need one of those 3 transcripts. Did I send a dual enrollment transcript if I already have dual enrollment credit? Did I have my official scores sent from College Board or ACT to the school? And did I create a portal with the state universities to check the status of my application and my documents? So it's really important to go through those and make sure that you've done those so that your applications are able to be processed. If you're a junior and you're wondering what you can do this year in order to help yourself for next year, let's go over just a couple of things. Number one is I would recommend that you take the PSAT on October 29th at school. It's $20. If you qualify for free or reduced lunch, I can give that to you with a waiver for free. But that's a great opportunity just to get another time to practice for that SAT. The biggest thing really is to be working on those test scores. It becomes very stressful when it's senior year and we don't have the test scores that we want to get into the university of our choice. So it's really important to start a prep program now for SAT and ACT. Come and see me and I can help you with that. I want to go ahead and register for testing as a junior. I want to make sure I have an SAT and an ACT under my belt by the time I finish my junior year. I also want to make sure I register for my grades. Like we talked about earlier in this presentation, junior year grades are the last grades that these colleges will see to make an admissions decision. So it really is important that these grades are our top grades. This is the last part going into that college application GPA. I can also research my schools and visit my top choices. Obviously, right now with COVID, we can't really do in-person visits for most of these schools, but they do have virtual visits online, and they also have visits that you can do with an admissions recruiter online in different Zooms, so I'd really encourage you to check those out. Also start thinking about teacher recommendations. For some schools and for all scholarships, you are going to need a teacher recommendation. So I would definitely think about the teachers that you've already developed relationships with and keep developing your relationship with those teachers, and maybe even mention that you might want to use them for a recommendation and see if they would be willing to do that for you. What I would personally recommend is that you go ahead and start a common application. Come and see me if you're a junior and you want to get started with this, and I can help you. But there's a lot of the common app that you can actually do now, and you'll thank yourself so much this time next year that a lot of it is already filled out. But come and see me because there's a couple sections that you won't want to fill out. It won't transfer over, but I can help you get started with that. And then the biggest thing is, even though the schools that you apply to next year are not going to see your senior year grades, they are going to see your senior year schedule. And for schools like FSU and UF, and if you're applying to an Ivy League or a top 50 school, it's really important that you have a rigorous senior year schedule. So I know that, it's a lot of times we think we're going to be so busy senior year, which we definitely will be, and we're trying to give ourselves a break, but it's really important that you continue to build a strong schedule so that they can see that that's the type of student that you are. You're still willing to challenge yourself. You're still committed to learning through your senior year. This next section, I am really not going to read all of this to you, but I want to have it so that you can pause it and look at what each school is going to require for their application. So at this point, I'm just going to go through the slides of the top Florida schools so that you have a bulleted list of what is required for these applications, whether they use Common App, Coalition, or institutional apps, and if they use the SAR. So this is Florida Atlantic University. Florida State University. Pasco Hernando State College. University of Central Florida. University of Florida. University of South Florida. So I know we went over a lot of information and this has been an hour long, and I want to thank you if you stayed through this whole presentation. But I don't want to do this to overwhelm you. I really do want to meet with parents and students personally in order to help you at a more individualized level. But hopefully you got a lot of information from this in order to start your college application process. Please feel free to call me or email me or text me from my Senior Remind. Parents, you are also free to join that Senior Remind if you'd like to stay up to date on the scholarship newsletters and different announcements that I put out to seniors. I thank you guys so very much for joining us tonight, and I hope to hear from you soon.